CGL and both governments repeatedly trumpet that CGL has agreements with 20 First Nations along the pipeline route. The intent is clear, to make it appear to the public and media that the pipeline has significant Indigenous support. They don't say that this is not happening on any of the reserves of these First Nations. Nor this, nor this, nor this. Some of these First Nations, aka band councils, are benefiting from short-term construction-related employment. All are receiving significant sums through pipeline agreements. As for the Yintah, even though First Nation band councils on the Yintah have no jurisdiction over 99.5% of the Yintah, 5 of the 6 have signed agreements that declare that they are asserting their Aboriginal rights, including Aboriginal title. It's worth remembering that these First Nations were created by the Indian Act, and they have no authority outside that Act. The Yintah is unceded land, no treaties, no agreements, nothing ever ceded to Canada or British Columbia. So any rights and title that Wet'suwet'en First Nations claim only exist within the definitions of the Indian Act and have no validity beyond their reserve boundaries. By contrast, the Supreme Court of Canada has ruled that the office of the Wet'suwet'en, led by the hereditary chiefs, have sole Aboriginal title over the Yintah. It is shockingly disturbing that the government of British Columbia would write such insidious deception into a legal contract. The governments of Canada and British Columbia have escalated their use of force, surveillance, and criminalization of land defenders to intimidate, remove, and forcibly evict the Wet'suwet'en from their traditional lands. That is a quote from a letter that the United Nations Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination delivered to both the BC and federal governments in April 2022. The Canadian Criminal Code defines genocide as any act committed with the intent to destroy in whole or in part any identifiable group by deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction. When asked if those two were synonymous, ChatGPT said no, but only because the UN statement describes an act of genocide, whereas genocide is not limited to that particular act, it has a broader scope. The bottom line is that UNCERD has asserted that an act of genocide has been committed on the Yintah and governments are responsible. If, as UNCERD asserts, Kyrgyz has committed an act of genocide on the Yintah, and RBC is the number 1 financer of the pipeline, then
today, fossil fuel producers and their enablers are still racing to expand production, knowing full well that this business model is inconsistent with human survival.
The primary enablers of the fossil fuel industry are banks because the pillar upon which all fossil fuel projects depends is financing. The Royal Bank of Canada is the number 1 enabler of fossil fuel projects in Canada, number 5 in the world. It is also the number 1 enabler of the CGL pipeline. The fastest way to disable fossil fuel projects is to stop financing them. Urging RBC to defund the pipeline is the primary focus of those working to free the Yintah, because if you take away RBC financing from CGL, then pipeline construction ceases almost immediately and the invasion ends. For things you can do to help free the Yintah from tiny to tremendous, or to understand more, check out the links below the video. Thanks for watching.